Hello and welcome back to The Atmosphere's Electric. There's Fran and Rich. How are you, bud?
Very good. How are you?
I don't know what that means, but yes. Okay. I'm very good too. Loads to get through today, and actually, believe it or not massively maybe focus on the Premier League because I think there's lots of other things for us to get through. But let's just have a quick rundown of how we got on last week. I think I got 6 out of 10 with one correct score. I think
6 out of 11. We had a bonus game.
Okay. Trust you to pee on my chips. 6 out of 11. Okay, with one correct score. How did you get on?
I got 8 out of 11 with 0 correct scores.
Oof. 8 out of 11. You did obviously have the bonus win of obviously Palace coming through, and so let's start right there because for me. Obviously, we both kind of nailed our colours to the mast last week, saying we would love Crystal Palace to win. And actually, having seen it, having felt it, having experienced it, I'm so glad they did for those fans because it was actually a thing of beauty, wasn't it? It was a really, really beautiful experience. Not being a Palace fan, but just to watch other people have that moment of we've done it. And those fans were fantastic in the semi-final and the final. And I was just so made up for them at that final whistle. It was an unbelievable experience, wasn't it?
Well, there was people in the stands literally crying. Which, if Man City would have won it, it would have just been another tick, another one. And Pep probably would have been celebrated in the same way. So, 100%, it was not the right thing to have happened because obviously Man City will come back and fight that question. But it was definitely the right thing to see. Those fans have waited. They've never won a major trophy, so they've waited all their lives. Some of them. Some will never have got to the end of their life and seen that. So, unbelievable experience for them and for the neutral, I think, to see that as well.
Yeah, I thought there was a really interesting piece of, obviously Palace set up in a specific way and Manchester City dominated the ball, but Palace played that fast break, didn't they, to perfection. They didn't really, like Manchester City had lots of possession, they put lots of balls, but for me, other than the penalty, obviously, which again you could argue was or wasn't a penalty, they didn't really look like scoring, if I'm being honest. Like it felt pretty, I know Dean Henderson made a couple of saves, but that's what a goalkeeper's there to do. But so let's go back and let's start there. For you, Dean Henderson, red card or not?
I think it has to be a red card just for him coming outside. I'm still not unsure on the law. Does he have to be standing inside the box? Because he was standing inside the box but handballed it out. So I'm still unsure on that. But for what the VAR said the ball was going towards the corner flag, that was because of the action that Dean Henderson took. So for me, it has to be a red card for that reason alone.
So the way the rule works, and you would have seen it in reverse, is that when a goalkeeper, for example, comes sliding out and their feet go outside the box but their hands stay in, that's not handball. So it's where the hand is, not where the feet are.
Okay, so red card, handball.
Just if you think about it, if a goalkeeper comes sliding out to the left-hand side of their penalty area and it's a slippery day, and then they then try and keep the ball in the box, same with a corner, right? So if the feet are off but the hands are in, it's not. Same with a goal. If the feet are behind the line and the hands aren't, it's not a goal. So that's the logic behind it. And for that reason, I agree that actually. But the interesting thing for me is that if that had been in the Championship and they hadn't spotted it, you kind of go, yeah, okay, it's an error. But the VAR.
It's what it's there for. And that's why I keep coming back to. We mentioned the Stockport game the other day. When it's there and it makes mistakes, to me, it's compounding the misery. Like, I think most fans, I know it's Stockport, so it's not of the same level and there's not going to be as many fans talking about it, but that's now gone and forgotten about. I think it's been accepted as an error by human, whereas this now is going to be spoken about by Man City fans for probably years and years to come because they've had ample opportunity to make the right decision and it's still gone wrong with replay after replay technology.
Yeah, I thought it was a disgusting decision, if I'm honest with you. But for the game, delighted. As a neutral, delighted, because obviously at 10 men without your number one goalkeeper, I think it's a very, very different outcome. But, again, I could very much understand that Manchester City would be furious with that and the impact it had in the game. Because, of course, stayed on the pitch and made a great save from a penalty that was or wasn't a penalty. But what's more interesting for me is that Haaland, who's revered as arguably the best number 9 in the world, certainly in the conversation for it, gave the penalty away, which I thought was a really strange decision, regardless of his record at Wembley. If you think you're the main man, you want to be taking that penalty, surely.
Yeah, I thought so. You want, I mean, there is strikers around and have gone who haven't been penalty takers, but the majority of your goal scorers take penalties because naturally they're the best finishers. So I don't know. I remember penalties from Haaland. I don't ever remember thinking that he was a bad penalty taker. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a bonkers decision. I mean, he did hand it over to somebody who is a good penalty taker himself. So I don't think it's such terrible logic. It's not like they've handed it over to a centre half, but you would expect Haaland to take it 100%.
Yeah, I thought Dean Henderson's response after the game was, I knew which way Marmoush was going. I didn't know which way Haaland would have gone. And obviously it's easy in hindsight, again, all that kind of good stuff. But I just thought it was a really, not because I had £10 on Haaland to score at any time, which I did. But I just thought it was a really weird decision because, like I said, if you think you're the main man, I get that he's coming back from fitness. And so, like, in the game, I didn't think Haaland actually created much threat or danger. I thought he was not great in the game. But 12 yards out, one strike of a ball, you've got to back yourself.
100%. And just a one strike of the ball going on to staying on Marmoush. Did you see his goal? Bournemouth, to miss a penalty but then score that is just typical of football, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, I always think being a left footer makes penalties as a keeper harder as well. I think you face a right footed striker of a ball more often, but a left footer just offers you different. I mean, it can obviously go to one of 2-3 ways if it goes straight, but I just think it creates more problems as well.
Yeah, like I say, and yeah, so I mean, look, obviously Crystal Palace, I thought their game plan was perfect. I thought they looked engaged. You've got obviously some fantastic players in there. Do you think, and we do this a lot, so apologies everybody, but do you think that that's enough to keep Gahe, Eze, Sarr, Wharton, Glasner? Do you think that's enough to keep those at the club now because they've got that Europa League? Or is it kind of irrelevant and they're all going to be onto pastures new anyway?
No, I think it is enough to keep them. Obviously, they had the sale of Elise last summer, which will have swelled the coffers, and whether or not they've spent that money or whether they've just banked it, they're going to have a European journey. One, to attract players, but two, the finances that come with that as well will obviously help. They're obviously doing well in the league, so another few places will add a few more prize money into the coffers. I think the money that's going to attract, the sort of gravitas of being in European competition will keep one, the manager, but two, the main players as well. And I think that they'll only add to it. It was fully expecting that we were going to add to it last season. They started off really poorly, didn't they? Because really, they had some decent signings, but it wasn't to the level that was expected for the sale of Elise and the funds that it brought in. So I think now is the time that you'll start to see them not go big. I don't think they're ever going to be that sort of club to go big, but for them, go big, sign a few really quality players and try and kick on.
Yeah, I have a feeling that two of those names will be gone. I think Eze and Gahe will still go because I think they'll go to Champions League clubs, and so therefore the Europa League isn't enough of a catch to keep them. But I think it might be enough to keep the manager, and that for me is key because I think, again, I've seen some of the stuff in the build-up, some of the stuff afterwards. Again, he's very similar to some of the stuff that they're putting out about Thomas Franklin. He's a good communicator. He gets it. And I think that's more important, and that leads us on to a conversation we'll have later about other teams, is that he's made those players better. And I think if they can keep him, they've got a chance of, let's be honest, we watched the Europa League final last night. If Crystal Palace were playing either of those two teams, they win it.
Oh, they wouldn't have even just won it, they'd have wiped the floor with them.
So Palace have to give themselves a sensible crack at going deep into that competition next year. And what a great experience for us fans. I was so buzzing for the Palace fans and the club, and I think it's a great outcome for a season that, Newcastle winning the Carabao, Palace winning the FA Cup. I think it's great for us to see different teams. And of course, Liverpool winning the league. It's great for us to see different teams winning stuff.
I think it's good for the Premier League as well. Obviously, seeing Man City win it 4 years in a row, we've always revered the Premier League for its unpredictability and competitiveness, which seems to have been going from the bottom end, but the top end seems to be as competitive as ever. And I think that's exactly what the Premier League needs and the European spots need is a bit of a refresh of some of the teams just to keep interest and to also spread the money around so it stays competitive.
Yeah, genuine congratulations to everybody at Palace. for a fantastic afternoon and a cup run that they didn't get the easy way. They had to beat some good teams along the way, and of course, maybe arguably the best of the best in the final. So a massive well done. It was also been a weekend of emotion elsewhere, and we move on to. There's been goodbyes left, right, and centre, but we're going to start with a goodbye to a fixture or a fitting, if you like, in terms of Goodison Park. I don't know how much of it you saw, but I found myself completely mesmerised by the whole day, and I got swept up in the emotion. I mean, I got swept up in the emotion of Saturday evening in the FA Cup, but I then found myself feeling really nostalgic about a stadium that I've only ever been to once. I've never supported the team in it, but I really got kind of wrapped up in the emotion of it and how great I thought it was. I thought TNT Sports did a great job of presenting it. Mm-hmm. And I thought Everton did a great job of embracing it as well. And I just thought it was a great day for everybody concerned with Everton.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job. I think the only downside to that was Beto just couldn't stay on side. It could have been 5 or 6, couldn't it? Like, it would have really capped it off. But no, I thought the coverage on it was great. I thought Everton did a good job, bringing in all the ex-legends. Wayne Rooney, Duncan Ferguson was there. I think Jack Yelker, there was loads of them there.
Yeah.
But they did a really good job of that. And Southampton coming with hindsight was probably the best team. I thought probably at the time we would have liked to have seen a better team come in and strip their stuff, but actually they probably turned out to be the best team to face, didn't they? Because they could definitely seal it with a win.
Yeah, I just genuinely kind of, even like the Z cars, the theme tune, to get to see how sort of small the changing rooms are there. I've obviously never been in the change rooms there before. I just thought, even to see the commentators having to sort of climb over the roof to get there, and then just to see the fans in the thing and how early they all got there. I just thought it was in the sunshine as well, so everybody could enjoy it. I just thought it was a really emotional way of saying goodbye. And you kind of forget, actually, it doesn't happen that often, does it, that a team leaves a stadium to go to a brand new stadium? Like, you think about Arsenal, you think about Southampton, you think about West Ham. There's not many that have actually sort of done that recently, and so I just thought, I thought it was a great way and a great send-off.
With the history that some clubs move from staying in, and there is obviously history there, but not a club like the size of Everton, really. I think that you have to put that into it. One thing that I thought was really good was obviously the coverage of the fans. Like, there was all blue flares going off, and I try to compare that to Liverpool, obviously in the same city, but Liverpool is going to attract more outsiders because of the club and the success, whereas actually Liverpool is very much a homely club. It's going to have mainly fans from the area, which I think you saw, and I think you could see the outpouring there. And I thought that the fans did a really good job of sending it off as well.
Yeah, really good experience. And I guess let's just move on to the fact that they're moving into what's now called the Hill Dickinson. Now, see, it doesn't bother me as much as it seems to be bothering other people.
I don't mind it. So I think the actual sponsorship itself and the story behind it is amazing. It's just the name. Like you're saying, let's go down there, and then you've got the names that you could reel names off. The Hill Dicky. It just doesn't sound like a stadium. It's not a football name. But the actual sponsorship itself, I think, is a lovely story. They've kept it local. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I just think that if you don't like, you're just going to call it Bramley Moor, aren't you? You're going to let's go down. I don't know. What I would say is, if you look at some of the other teams in the Premier League who haven't managed to get naming rights over the line in their new stadium that's been open for years, to get a naming right over the line before the stadium's even been used, I think is actually, and it can only help the team and the club grow. I also think what they've done for the women's team by keeping Goodison Park, I can't believe they've kept Goodison. I thought they would have had to have sold that for houses, for sure.
I thought it was a no-brainer. They'd sell it to somebody, 200 million, exactly what Chelsea have done, swell the coffers for PSR. I thought it was absolutely a brainer. And a fair play to them for doing that. Yeah,
no, I think, as we've said many times on here, David Moyes feels like the right man again. I think the new owners look like the right people. I think that Everton, I don't think, and again, a lot of water's passed on the bridge. I don't think we're going to be talking about them in terms of the race for the top 6 next season, but I think we can safely say that we're not going to be talking about them in the race for the bottom 6 and the relegation next season, and that's probably enough for Everton fans for the time being as they move to kick on, as they go through the process.
Yeah, I don't know, but I would probably, at this minute in time, still include them in the bottom 6 conversations based on just where they currently are. I just want to see, as soon as you start, I think obviously the new stadium, the naming rights, that's going to put some money in the coffers. I just think a bit of, I'd like to see some business before I can be fully on board with thinking the full trajectory, but no, it's going in the right direction 100%. I think it's the happiest you can be as an Everton fan for probably 10 years.
Yeah, since David Moyes' last
Yeah, possibly.
probably. Off the bat, by the way, I would say right now you'd have to throw Wolves, West Ham, and Manchester United. And the only reason why Spurs get a reprieve is because they've got that Champions League carrot for next season to attract players. Those other teams don't. I think you'd have to say all three of them are in a worse position than Everton are currently. But again, like you're quite right there is a big transfer window ahead, and who stays, who goes.
Yeah, because if they lose Jared Brandtler as an example, I think they look remarkably weak.
Absolutely right, but Wolves look like they've lost Cunha already. So again, like I say, lots of water to pass under the bridge, and we talk about players coming and going. And I thought two players that had their opportunity to say goodbye. And again, I must admit, I have actually found this week as a football fan genuinely quite emotional in terms of, like I say, the FA Cup, Goodison Park, and then of course Jamie Vardy and Kevin De Bruyne. Both have getting their chance at home to say goodbye to the fans of where they've been for both of them over 10 years. I was absolutely delighted that Jamie Vardy got to score a goal, obviously to take it to 200 and 500. And I thought Leicester and Manchester City did the right thing for both players in the send-off they gave them. I thought it was a really, really great way to say goodbye to two club legends.
Yeah, and I think start with De Bruyne and Man City. I think they've put a mural out there. They've renamed a road, Kevin De Bruyne Street, whatever it is, Avenue, whatever it is. And then obviously the send off, that little tea fair and everything. I think they did a great job of that. He looked a bit peeved to me though. I still think he feels he should have had another year. Like I think he doesn't look like he's accepted it. And I think Leicester did a decent job. But I think the only thing with Leicester is they're still pumping out the Vardy stuff, and I think they're now using Vardy, which I feel is unfair, to cover of the stuff that's just gone with PSR and how bad the relegation. So I think there's a sour note on that for maybe is they're tarnishing his legacy, but they're using him to cover over the cracks effectively. But his actual send-off couldn't have gone any better, could it? 500 games, 200 goals, a win as well, which has been very rare this season. So yeah, I was really pleased with that.
Yeah, a great experience and a great way to send the player off. And again, both of them still think they've got a year or two left in the Premier League. So it's going to be very interesting to see if they have, in terms of is there interest in them, and what that looks like and where do they go, because both offer, if you think about some of them young squads out there, potentially, as a bit of a kind of a bit part player, but actually, and again, it depends on how much money they're looking for a week, of course. If they're happy to, especially Kevin De Bruyne, who's I think was on 350 grand a week at his peak, you're not going to get anywhere near that. But actually, if you were prepared to go and help a team with your experience and be one of those players that comes on to see games out and to help the youngsters come through, I think actually both of them had some real value. And of course, if you're a midfield player, who better to learn off of? And if you're a centre forward, who better to learn off?
I genuinely, when I look at all the teams in the Premier League, I think he could, and I include Man City, where he's obviously leaving, I still think he gets in every single team. I said, as long as his wage demands aren't ridiculous, 100, 150 grand, which is still well worth, I think a lot of the top teams should be looking to snap him up, one or 2 year deal, I'd say, because for what he could offer, like you said, he's not going to play every game, but get him teaching people around him. Like, imagine him slotting in at Arsenal, rather than having just Odegaard as your single creative outlet in the middle part, having him rotating with De Bruyne. But I think you can go through most teams and say that. So I think it's crazy that they're allowing him to go. But I think he's not going to be short of options, is he? I know there's been rumours around Napoli, but I think he can do a bit better than that at the minute in the Premier League.
Well, Napoli will be champions. Whatever happens on tomorrow night, Napoli will be Champions League. Obviously, there's a very exciting last two games of the Italian season. And what I love is that they've brought it forward, because actually, if it goes the way it could go, there's a playoff to decide who wins the league. So that would be so exciting. And I don't think it will happen, because it needs Napoli to lose and Inter Milan to draw. And I think one of them is going to win. Although both of them are really bad on Sunday. I watched them both, and it was horrific to watch. It could be really interesting. But yes, like I say, Kevin De Bruyne, and again, it depends about the family, right? Because actually, they look. We mentioned it quite a few times about how they came as a 2, left as a 5, i.e., his 3 children being born in the UK. You might think you might want to stick around based on that part of it, the educational piece. Who knows? But I genuinely enjoyed watching both of their send-offs. I thought, both clubs, Leicester and Man City, will be a little bit less because they've lost those players. But I thought the clubs did the players proud. And again, it shows other clubs how you do it when you've had a club legend leave. That's the right way to do it. Give them that opportunity to kind of say goodbye to the fans. And, you think about, we'll move on to the Europa League, you think about Heung-min Son. What I would love today is for the club and him to come out and say he's leaving at the end of this season, and he gets Sunday to do the same. Because, when you think about like a Harry Kane who didn't get that, I think it's just the right way to do it is if you can give him that opportunity to say goodbye to the fans and vice versa. I think it means everybody just leaves on the right tone. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, and when you look back through history, there's quite a lot of players that haven't had that opportunity to do that as a legend of their club, which I think, it's more, obviously the player doesn't feel like they've left properly, but more the fan. The fans are the lifeblood. Like they want to say goodbye and thank you. In the case of Kevin De Bruyne and Jamie Vardy, those clubs wouldn't be what they were without them. So, the fans want to also say thank you, and I think it's just the correct thing to do. So, yeah, it would be great for Son to get that as well as like you said, Harry Kane didn't have the opportunity to say goodbye.
And of course, apologies, Palace fans. I forgot Joe Ward obviously had the same experience at Crystal Palace as well, which was a lovely occasion. And I thought he spoke very well. By the way, I thought actually, Kevin De Bruyne looked a little bit more awkward on the microphone, but I thought Joe Ward did a really good job of expressing himself to the fans, and again, doing the right thing, gave him a real good send off in that party atmosphere. I thought that was apology. I forgot all about Joe Ward because it wasn't live on the telly. Another great example of how to do things the right way.
Yeah, and I think the thing to highlight with all of those three leaving is that two of them were in celebratory sort of modes, weren't they? Whereas one is still in a negative mode, but still managed to get the right message across. So it's doable regardless of the situation.
I'm not sure which two are celebrating. I'm not sure Man City was celebrating or Leicester, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Man City it's not been the worst season in the world, has it? It's not been great for them. They're in a rebuild mode, so it's not like they've been relegated.
No, but talk about two teams that have had a horrific season and came together last night in which has to be the stinkiest, worstest, words that don't exist in the dictionary, Europa League final known to man. In the battle to the bottom, Spurs came out on top somehow. I'm not even sure that they had a shot on target if I go back through the memory bank, because I'm not sure that we can call the goal a shot on target. But that's potentially a real moment in the sand, isn't it, for both teams to go different ways now. Spurs, obviously, with that Champions League football and all that brings. Manchester United with no European football next season. And if we can start with the manager, because for me, a manager comes in, I look at what Glasney's done with Crystal Palace, and he's made those players look better down the system. Amorim's had a fair chunk of time now. It doesn't look to me like Manchester United are any closer to understanding that system or having the players to play it. And now they've got a summer where who signs for Manchester United over all of the other teams that we've already discussed that do have Champions League? I think they're in real trouble now.
I do think they're in real trouble. I do feel for Amorim because he was told to come in at a specific time. Yeah. He didn't have the option to come in with a pre-season. He's not had the players delivered to him. The players that he has had delivered, players like Dorgu, I don't know whether they are his signings or the club is signing. I don't particularly rate Dorgu at all, if I'm being honest. So I do have sympathy for him, but there has been no improvement whatsoever. I also felt his lineup for the final yesterday was wrong. As soon as Garnacho came on, I thought we looked a different beast. Yes, he's still not the end product, but he offered so much more threat than anyone else on the pitch that I just thought the whole lineup was completely wrong as well. So he definitely has to take some stick. One thing is that does look, Cunha is showing the least respect I've ever seen of an existing player to his existing club. He's posting it all over social media that he's gone to United, that it's agreed. I do think that's a very good sign, and I think he does. He is the player that fits an Amorim system down to a T. So I think he is a very good sign and will help them. But on the other points of who else do they sign, I look around and I think, who are they going to sign? Because it's still Manchester United. They're still going to be rinsed every time they go in for somebody. But they're in serious trouble.
And I only thought about this morning. Do we need to change the narrative around Manchester? Because Manchester United are revered as the second biggest club in the world behind Real Madrid, right? It doesn't matter who you speak to; they're perceived to be a big club. If you, I know you can't, but if you look at Manchester United before Alex Ferguson got there, bang average. They didn't win stuff. He was on the cusp of getting fired, and they won an FA Cup, and that's what kept him in the job. In fact, the game against Palace obviously was a big turning point. Obviously, Nottingham Forest before that. Like before Alex Ferguson came in, they were absolutely irrelevant. Since Alex Ferguson's gone, they're almost irrelevant. Are we planning, or we talk about Manchester United as being this big beast that actually is never going to get back to that, because it was just, that was their moment, that was their window, and forever now they're just another Premier League team with just a big fan base. Because
I think
what are they doing?
You direct comparisons Liverpool, isn't it? Liverpool obviously had an amazing history. Then went a long period of time of sort of being irrelevant, but they're never going to be irrelevant because of what they've previously won. So they're always going to be able to fall back on the Alex Ferguson years. I think it's more just tempering where they are. So when Liverpool were going through that, and they were still winning some trophies, by the way, Liverpool, they still won a Champions League and bits and bobs, but they're never going to be classed as a small team, are they? Just because of what they've won. But they're going to be classed as a sleeping giant. So there's always going to be the potential to awake them, but their expectations of where they are going to have to be tempered. Like you hear Gary Neville all the while, don't you, talking about titles? That's gone. Stop talking about titles. If anything, next year you talk about staying up. From what we've seen this season, you need to be focusing your attention elsewhere. So I agree with what you're saying. I just don't think it's ever going to be able to talk about them as an irrelevant club because of just the sheer history of what has gone before.
But I look at their fan base and it's aging. You know, like you look at a lot of their fans are very much over a certain age. You know, like I say, both my dad and my uncle are Manchester United fans because of the Munich. You know, and they are whatever they are, 70 whatever's. And I spend a lot of time in youth football, as you know, and I don't see anybody in the South now supporting Manchester United who's under the age.
Where would you?
Well,
where would you?
But 20 years ago, when they were winning, there was loads of Man United tops down south, but now there's none. So their fan base is only going to get diminished. There's more and more teams now that are actually kind of relevant in the Premier League. I genuinely believe that last night it was one of the worst games of football. And by the way, I watch Step 5 football sometimes at the weekend. I'd rather go and watch a Step 5 game than that again. It was
what was interesting to me, though, around sort of who people support is trophies are being shared out. Teams are now starting to do well, competing with the elite. You're going to start seeing people in the local area supporting the local area teams more and more, which is going to take from these huge institutions and fan bases, and they're not going to have the pull that they used to. So you're only going to see that go one way. On the final, it was a very poor game, but I think quite clearly one of the teams was coached with a game plan very, very well. It wasn't pretty. It's not what you would class and go, I would love to watch this game, this style of football, but one of them knew exactly what they were doing. And I don't think it's hard to say who it was. One of them defended for their lives, but they knew how they were defending. I thought, at no point did I ever think Man United were going to score.
No. Look, and same with Palace on Saturday, right? There was a difference between the attitude in the Manchester United camp and fans than there was to the Spurs camp and fans. The Spurs fans went out there en masse. The Spurs fans nearly filled the stadium at Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, well, there was certainly 40,000 in there, not as much as the Champions League final, obviously, a few years ago. They packed the stadium. They packed Bilbao. There was that sense of togetherness. Obviously, everybody was hanging off of the fact that Ange Postecoglou said, I don't normally win, I always win in my second season. So they had, and you just felt that it was like so much more important, even though it shouldn't have been, to the white side of the stadium than it was the red side of the stadium. Yet actually the red side of the stadium sort of felt almost that they just needed to turn up and they were going to beat Spurs.
Yeah. I'm firmly in the camp that it was more important for Manchester United, because I think the turnaround from where they've come from to where they currently are, they needed it. Spurs, on the other hand, had gone, 17 years without a trophy? What's adding making it 18? It wouldn't have meant a lot. There'd have been a new manager coming in, there'd have been a change of players, and it would have just been pretty much business as usual for Spurs. And I mean that without trying to be rude, as in, you've not won a trophy. It would have just been business as usual, looking for a new manager. United needed it. They needed it to get back to being where they want to be, and with all the money that comes with it, the razzmatazz of the competition, all of that. And now they've not got it. Like I said, we're talking about relegation now for the next season.
It just changes. Both teams are in for very, very similar players. So for example, Angel Gomez is available on a free transfer. Jonathan David is available on a free transfer. Both teams are interested in both players. Which one of those players is now picking Manchester United over Spurs based on no European football at Manchester United? Let's not forget, Manchester United still owe £300 million on players that they've already signed. Yeah. Financially, they don't have the clout. Financially, they're not going to be able to make those impacts. They're making cuts behind the scenes.
There's other things that come into play. There aren't. The stadium. Look at the stadium. Where would you want to play? Spurs every day of the week. United got rats and it's falling down. Like it's
rats.
They're full of fun. And that's right. The training ground and all that.
It's just a rat.
They're cutting costs. You can't have. The staff can't have lunch in the canteen. Or like the feeling. There was bad feeling around both clubs. I'm so pleased for Ange, by the way, because I really like his interviews. He stands up. He's really personable. It was effectively bullied him a bit, the British press, with, obviously he came out and said what he did, but that was because he was asked a question. He didn't come out and boast about it, like he said in his conference, and then he's doubled down on it because they keep asking him the same question. And he has looked like he's been bullied, and he does look a different man to when he first came in. And I'm really pleased for him that he can basically give two fingers back to the press and go, off some of that, I've won this now, and, he's broke the hoodoo for Spurs. So I'm really pleased, and I think he's done a great job. And there's conversations now of whether they learn from United and Ten Hag is do they get rid. I can't see how you can get rid of him. I think now he's only going to kick on with a bit of backing. Levy has always wanted to go the cheap route. He's now going to go in there and say, "I've won you the trophy. You back me." If he doesn't, I think you might see him move on himself as opposed to being pushed.
Yeah, I feel that the decision has already been communicated to him before the final, either way. And that there was
that's the impression you get looking at the way he's been handling himself, but it's got to be a conversation about it.
Well, there was a moment last night where in his post-match, and I don't normally stick around for managers' post-match interviews because they're generally pretty kind of generic, and I thought we deserved to win the game, etc., etc. But I wanted to hear his kind of mic drop moment of, I always win something in my second season, so I listened to it, and there was a couple of times where, when talking about next season, he said "they," not us. Now that could just be nothing, but for me, obviously there's some movement going on behind the scenes with Paratici coming back to Spurs. You mentioned the Ten Hag experience where they kept him after winning the FA Cup, dropped £100 million on players, then fired him after 10 games anyway. I just feel like everybody knew that he was either staying or not staying before the game. And maybe that's why the players bought into it. And maybe that's why the players had that kind of family feeling. It was like, let's send him off. Now, I don't know any of this, by the way. This is all just some supposition.
Yeah. When they were given the trophy as well, he stood to the side of the players, thinking that the players went and got him. And I was thinking the same. I was going, is that he's such a nice bloke? Because he just come across as a really nice bloke. Is that he's giving the players their moment? Or is it a case of he feels detached from the group? But then the players getting him to say, no, you're not missing this. You're our gaffer. Or, we go and want to give you the best send-off possible. Like, there's so many ways you could analyse that and wrap it up. But it's going to be an interesting one. So that I'm personally now in the camp of, it's different to the United case. They won the FA Cup. It's not a European trophy. It's not Champions League next season.
Completely.
The stadium, the money that it's bringing in, the PSR calculations of how wide it is for them. I think they're the most profitable club PSR-wise and will have the biggest budget. Like, to me, I just don't see how you can't give him the tools now after he's done that.
There was a really interesting link. Leroy Sané. I'd heard albeit maybe a TDC, because I think he's available on a free. If Spurs did win the Europa League, that Leroy Sané would be a player they'd try and go. And I love Leroy Sané. I love the way he plays. He is so direct.
And I mean this with the greatest respect to Brennan Johnson, because I'm saying he's going to be playing on that side. Chalk and cheese.
Listen, look, let's have it right. That Spurs squad has got some good in it, but it needs...
Definitely got good in it.
But I mean, to start with, Richarlison and Johnson as your wide players, nowhere near the level. To not... but again, in Spurs' defence...
With hindsight, I messaged you about Richarlison. With hindsight, I think it was a great move to play Richarlison. He offered nothing going forward, but I thought defensively he worked his balls off. He's Christian Romero, isn't he? Niggles, kicks here and there, stopped them playing. He was dreadful going forward, but for the type of five at the back, defending with your lives, I actually thought it was a bit of a masterstroke putting him there.
Yeah, I see. if I was Daniel Levy and Everton, for example, came back, I'd be going, you can have him for 20 million quid, take care. Obviously, you know, they're going to get more money from Man or Solomon than they thought they could have done because the season he had. So for me, I'd be thinking about. But yeah, like I say, I thought both wingers were miles off it. But in Spurs' defence, they were missing £200 million worth of midfield talent in Kulusevski, Maddison, and Bergvall. You add those into the mix, and I think it's a completely different game. But let's just say that if you're a fan of Spurs and Manchester United, I don't think you're buying a DVD when it comes out. It was pathetic performance from both teams. The difference is that one have got Champions League football that they can now go and enjoy, and the other don't, and that's the fork in the ground.
So I'm going to disagree on the pathetic side for Spurs because their game plan was to score and defend. So I actually don't think, from a neutral point of view of watching nice football, it wasn't the best watch. But I thought Spurs did an unbelievable job defensively. So I think the credit to them is they had a game plan, stuck to it, won the trophy. If I was a Spurs fan, I'd buy the DVD.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I'd have it as a decoration. We do have to.
I've watched the last 10 minutes of when the celebrating having the trophy given. I don't know about the game.
Yeah, you could probably get it on YouTube for free. I would. Let's not forget that Mickey Van der Ven had to make a goal line clearance. Vicario to make 2 saves. So yes, it was a good defensive performance for what we perceive Spurs to be. But Manchester United in the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes, did actually have some chances that could, should have, would have.
That's what we're there for. And Arne was there. And Arne was there to save it. And did you hear Goldbridge? He said, "I'd seen a door there and go."
Well, you could argue. So let's move on. Like I say again, I'm actually more excited about the summer than I am about the season now for so many different reasons. You know, like does Palace
get the rumours have started to kick around, haven't they, with managers and players? Like I mentioned, Sane and the manager rumours going around. You've got Will Still, who looks like he's coming to Southampton. Like this, it's all starting to kick off, and I think in the next few weeks it's just going to go wild, and it's going to start happening, isn't it? As generally everything is starting to come to its end, and people will know, or teams will know where they're at, which will mean people will know where they're at, and it will just go wild.
Absolutely, and as we do this, the final piece, and of course, I know you're all here waiting for our predictions because they're so great, and we're going to whiz through them today in a different format, much quicker, not give too much, just because there's so many topics for us to talk about. But so before we get on to the final game week of this season's Premier League, there is the small matter of the playoffs this weekend. And firstly, good luck to everybody involved. You know, hope it goes your way. You know, I'm genuinely looking forward to being plonked in front of the telly, watching the drama unfold. Obviously, we'll leave League 2 and League 1 for the time being. But obviously, the Championship playoff, one of those two teams is coming into this giddy Premier League next season. Who do you think it will be, and why?
So I have an opinion of who I want. I'd like it to be Sunderland, to just give a bit of variety to the Premier League. However, if you were to give me £1,000, I'd put £5,000 on Sheffield. I just think it's so. You look at the points that finished in the league. Sheffield are a better team. It's without doubt. Obviously, anything can happen in the playoffs, but Sheffield are a better team. They've got a better squad. Sunderland have been very, very iffy of late. Everything for me just points at Sheffield. I would like Sunderland to make it just to give a bit of variety to the Premier League. You know, another sleeping giant which could come back and come into the Premier League, which would make it interesting. I can't see past Sheffield. I think they're a good bet. I think the odds are. If I was looking at bet, let's have a quick look. Sheffield 13 to 10. I think that's a great bet.
Oh wow. Blimey, that is big, isn't it? The only two things I will say around the Sunderland piece is that, you know, yes, that they did come into the playoffs in a bad run of form, but once he knew they were safe, they downed.
That's a worry to me, though, is that they've lost that momentum.
Yeah, possibly, or you rested players so they come back fresh. Yeah. But the only thing go on.
So, as I said, Sunderland, though, when you look at the team, I think they've got a few better individuals than what Sheffield have. I think Sheffield are just more rounded as a team. So I really like Isidore up front. I think he looks a really good, pacey player who can cause people play. Obviously got Enzo Lafay on loan, who, you know, when he was signed, was being hailed as the greatest ever signed. He's probably flattered to deceive a bit, and obviously Bellingham as well, who's a good player. So I think individually they've probably got a few of the better players in the game, but Sheffield just rounded it far better.
They absolutely are, but there is nobody better in the Championship than that fast break, turnover, transition goal. And that's how, if Sunderland are to win this, Sheffield United are, I think it's fair to say, physically more dominant, but they're not packed with blistering pace at the back. And for me, thinking about the Palace-Man City game, if Sunderland can absorb the pressure and find that moment where they can do the transition and get on the break, like you say, they've got a couple of forwards that can, and when they go, they all go. Like they don't just.
He's a good player. The other Sunderland forward, Isidore, is another one who been playing at French, getting those reviews, pacey as well. So I think it should be a really interesting game. Good blend of styles as well, like you're saying.
Yeah, and of course there's the all-London affair between Charlton and Leyton Orient, and then of course there's AFC Wimbledon versus Walsall as well. So obviously Walsall were coasting and then fell off a cliff and have now come back again. I think AFC Wimbledon are favourites, but I think that could be an interesting. Obviously Wimbledon have got a very good defensive record, but actually I think that the Walsall, for me personally, probably will just about have enough. I don't know how you feel about it. And I think that the London derby will be a really interesting day out for both teams. And I know Charlton are the favourites, but actually you can't underplay what Leyton Orient have done this season.
I'd be going for Leyton Orient in that, just because I think their second half of the season form has been promotion winning form, and where they've come from, I'd be looking at Leyton Orient for that on the League 2 one. If I'm being honest, I know how the teams have formed in the league. I don't know a lot about them, so wouldn't comment.
Are you somewhat biased by your hatred for Nathan Jones in your Leyton Orient?
I don't have a hatred for him at all. If I'm being honest, I knew he was a bit of a strange character. Let's put it that way. I think that's quite polite. But after seeing what I did, I was thinking, what on earth is he doing? So it's no hate. I just think he's a bit of a weirdo, if I'm being honest. I think he just detracts from everything of what the players have done. It's all about him. So. And also, I just like what Leyton Orient have done. At first, I remember seeing him after second from bottom or something like that. So the story of that, I just think he's probably a bit better story than seeing Nathan Jones all about him.
Yeah, interesting. I love watching it. I know there is still a Champions League, should we call it, playoff to take place in the Premier League. But for me, the game that's going to get my most interest at the weekend on Sunday will actually be the playoff, because I think there's so much more jeopardy involved in that. So that leads us nicely on to, and I've actually, by the way, really enjoyed talking about all the other stuff that's not specifically Premier League, so thank you for that, Fran. What we don't need to do this week is tell you when the games are, because they all kick off at 4 o'clock on Sunday, so we don't need to do that. We start, though, alphabetically at the Vitality Stadium. Bournemouth host Leicester without Jamie Vardy. Obviously, we've just spoken about clubs that can say goodbye to players. Obviously, Huijsen's only been there for a season, so probably won't get the same amount of love and attention that some of those other players we spoke about will. But is this just a frolic in what hopefully is a sun-laden Sunday, home win, move on? Bournemouth have now probably missed European football, and Leicester are obviously already down. Is there any kind of weight you can give to it beyond that, really?
Oh, well, I mean, the context of the game is I think Bournemouth are in a bit of iffy form and Leicester seem to be in decent form. Ironically, if Leicester win, Van Nistelrooy could win Manager of the Month. It's that bonkers. He could. He's won 3 draw 1, which is bonkers. But with the context of it, obviously Vardy's gone. There's going to be somebody else playing in his place. Van Nistelrooy is talking about looking to the future. I think you'll start to see a lot of the kids. I think one will start, possibly, which is obviously good. But with the context of the game, I can't see how this isn't a home win. I'd say Leicester are probably the form team at the minute. And if it was the game before that, I'd probably have had Leicester to draw, I think, because with momentum, scoring goals again, and actually have looked half decent. I just think Van Nistelrooy is going to change this. He's going to be looking to the future if he wants to try and keep his job as well. Probably, there's going to be a new striker on the pitch. Who that's going to be, I don't know. So I just think this is quite confident. I'm going to go. Do you want my prediction? I'm doing that now. Yeah, I'm going to go Bournemouth 2, Leicester 0.
Exactly what I've got. Are Bournemouth the biggest losers in this last 7 days? And bear with me. So they obviously lost the last 2 games. That means that they are now out of the European race. Crystal Palace are now in Europe. Now, if you think about the type of players that Bournemouth were going for, but more importantly, the type of players that Bournemouth were trying to keep, that lack of European football with so many other teams in the Premier League They're already circling, obviously, like I say, Hoyson's gone to Real Madrid. Do you think that Bournemouth could now, again, we use the pun of being cherry-picked, could they be the team that are the biggest losers out of all of this merry-go-round in the last 7 days?
So I did a very quick piece of analysis before we came on, looking to see sort of who could be in the potential trouble next year, and for me it's Bournemouth. Love the manager, love what he's done there, but talk about being cherry-picked. Hoyson's going. Semenyo looks to be on the shopping list of a lot of other players. Kluivert's a purple patch player to me. I don't think he's going to have the same impact as last season. I think Kirkes looks to be going. Yes, I know we mentioned on previous episodes that they'd already bought a left back, but he doesn't. I've not seen him. You can't judge what standard he's at. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near the Kirkes levels. To me, they're going to be cherry-picked, but it's going to be very. Yes, they're going to have money to be able to attract players, but they are still Bournemouth. They don't have any European competitions like Palace, like you mentioned. So I still think they're going to do a good job of it because of the way that the club is run. I think they'll attract some decent players and known players and still be okay. But for me, they look to be the ones, when I look at the table, who could join that bottom half of the table and be in trouble.
It's a massive window for who they keep, not who they sign. If they can keep the vast majority of that and add a couple, they'll be okay. Obviously, they've got good money for Hoyson, so that's 50 million quid that hopefully for the Bournemouth fans, it goes back into the team. Kirkes will go for a similar sort of number, I would imagine, to Liverpool, and then all of a sudden that helps you rebuild. But again, maybe it's all just come a little bit unstuck for them when it was looking so positive not that long ago. And like I say, if you're now a player coming into the UK and you've got a choice of Palace or Bournemouth, you probably do pick Palace, which you wouldn't have maybe thought about a couple of weeks ago.
Just on Bournemouth quickly, what did you think to the red card for Lewis Cook?
In real time, no. In slow-mo, yes.
I think that was the problem for me. So when it was slowed down, I put on Twitter, I got a dog's abuse for it, saying, "Are you blind?" But people were sending me the still. He's fair won the ball and slid. There was no force when they've connected. It was just a collision. For me, I thought the Man City players got him sent off by the reaction, going, "No, it's a disgrace because Kovac has already been sent off." So I didn't think it was a red card at all.
Yeah, no, I do think again, I'm at that age where if you get the ball, it's not a foul, but it is now. So in that sense, no. But in today's game, yes. And I thought it gave the referee, if I'm honest with you, a get out of jail free card because he sent Kovacic off, which I thought was, I get that he was technically the last man, but it was a long way away from the goal. It feels like a little bit of an overreaction, but it wasn't a great tackle, and we moved. It takes on to the Man City game. Of course, they now travel to Craven Cottage and play Fulham. And the only shame about that game was that Kevin De Bruyne missed the open goal to not score his goal in the last game at the stadium. I mean, a horrendous miss there. But actually, I saw some signs of Manchester City looking like they handled that defeat really well and taking it a positive way to move forward. And obviously, Rodri coming back onto the pitch was a great moment as well. So, although it's been a very underwhelming season for Manchester City, I see shoots of excitement moving forward.
I want Rodri to start this next game just to see if the old Man City just come back, and then we'll have an answer of why have Man City dipped so much. We've all been speculating as to, is it the ageing players, those sort of things have been found out, all of the things which have been spoken about. If Rodri just comes back in and all of a sudden you see the City of 2 years ago, you got your answer. So I really want to see him and see how they get on. I think it's a good game, an interesting game to watch for that reason. There is shoots of recovery, but I still think they've got a lot of problems there. If you were to say to me who's winning the league next year, I wouldn't be picking them.
I would. And but again, obviously, and comfortably, because you look at the business they did in January that they've not really used. You look at, for me, again, I don't know where Guardiola's going with this, but a double pivot of Gonzalez and Rodri with a Marmoush in front with a couple of wingers and a Haaland, the back four's looking. I just think that actually, if they will evolve again because they always do, I just thought, bloody hell, like Gonzalez and Rodri in midfield. Kovacic is probably not going to be there. Gundogan's finished. Bernardo Silva's still a good squad play. Oscar Bob coming back. People don't think how Oscar Bob is an absolute phenomenal talent. Missing him this season's been massive. I just think that they'll go again. For me, I think they're going to be the ones to beat.
Yeah, and obviously they're going to have 5 or 6 new signings coming in, spending loads of money. They're obviously going to be up there. I just think when I look at the teams around them, I think there's some of the teams that have just got a bit more of a set squad at the minute. And this is obviously without seeing the business going. Like you look silly there and go, oh, they've just signed 5 players and just go, of course they're favourites. But yeah, for me, I wouldn't like to be parting my money on them at the minute.
Look, Liverpool are doing some great bits of business, and I'm excited to see what they do. Frimpong, obviously, Kirkes looks like Man City have tapped out of Verts, and he's available. So Liverpool are doing some really good bits, and of course Arsenal are making some noise about going big as well. But like I say, Man City have got most of their pieces there already. I think they just need to maybe rejig them. And like I say, Rodri and Gonzalez look to me like a really, really strong midfield pair that. Yeah, we'll see. Like I say, this is the beauty of football, right? Is that we definitely made a fool of ourselves last time with some of our predictions. But I think, I'm also very interested to see what happens with the likes of Phil Foden. Does he have to leave to reinvigorate his career? Jack Grealish, what's going on there? You look at Jeremy Doku, who's starting to become a bit of a laughing piece. Like, there's lots of players there that they could ship out, but then who do they get back? It's going to be fascinating.
I could make 250 million, and on the sort of predictions, we're only looking at what you see currently. So whether we're saying that Bournemouth could be down there, they've still got all their players. We're looking ahead to predict the future, and no one can do that. So, yeah, I don't think any of the stuff that you hear generally from, and I'm not talking about us as well, without hearing people, going over the top, you're just speculating as to what you can see happening in the future, and it doesn't always pan out that way, does it?
So what do you see happening in the future of Fulham versus Manchester City, mate?
I can see quite a comfortable Man City win. I'm going to go Fulham 1, Man City 3.
I've gone 0-2. I think, again, these are two of the easier ones to predict. I think there's actually quite a lot of difficult ones this week for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah, I agree.
Like there's definitely a whole bunch of people that have been on the RB for party bus with the Wenger boys. Ipswich host West Ham at Portman Road. I guess my one result that I enjoyed the most last week was Nottingham Forest beating West Ham at home. If Ipswich beat West Ham, is this the final game of Graham Potter's West Ham tenure?
No, I don't think it will be. I think he's picked up a few points recently to be able to stave off the questions of being sacked. I think they have to stick with him, because if they don't, they're going to have to go down a rebuild route with somebody else. And I think all the eggs are in the Graham Potter basket. If I'm being honest, I can't see them losing. I watched Leicester Ipswich last week, and Ipswich were dreadful.
They were
absolutely dreadful. So I can't see West Ham losing, but I do think they're all in on the Graham Potter bus, and he'll get the rebuild in the summer. So
I've got and this is one of those ones where I've kind of gone, dip dog, you fell in, and I've got Ipswich. And I think just because their last home game, at Portman Road, the send-off, the celebration of all the things that Ipswich have achieved, because actually for them to even be in the Premier League is still bonkers, really, from where they were 24 months ago. I just feel like, West Ham haven't got anything to play for. Ipswich haven't either, but that being at home, I think, gives them that little bit of a sense of urgency. Last week, I get your point, but it was all really about Jamie Vardy. Even neutrals wanted Leicester to win that one. I just feel like this could be a game that Ipswich go and cause a bit of an upset. So I put Ipswich 1, West Ham 0, but that is a long shot I get, and I wouldn't put any kind of more than a couple of quid on it.
I got the impression that McKenna was trying players and prepping for the championships. Liam Drought didn't start as an example against Leicester, which I think we'll see again. They had Sammy Smolix up front, who just isn't, he scored, after we said it last time, he scored on the game week, but he isn't a Premier League striker. He's going to score a hat-trick now. But I just think it's Ipswich 1, West Ham 2. I just don't think they've got the quality to do it, whereas it's, West Ham, say, have Jared Bowen, they have a couple of players that are just proven at the level.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to argue with you. I think West Ham are obviously going to be the favourites, and I get it. I just got a feeling that Ipswich might do some damage. Ipswich are nearly 2-1. West Ham are pretty much even. So the bookies are there for a reason. But like I say, I just think that home advantage might tip them over, and we move up the motorway to Anfield, where I wouldn't want to do a blood test on either of these two teams in terms of what their alcohol level is and what it's going to be on Sunday. This is definitely going to be a party, whichever way you cut it. And I don't think anybody's going to care about the result in any way, shape or form. So that could lead this to being an absolute goal fest, a basketball match of 7-7. I've gone with Liverpool just because they're at home and they are the better team. But it could be anything, couldn't it, this one?
So I have very similar thoughts to you. I just think this game probably means a little bit more for Palace, because if they do win and results go their way, they can go up to a possible 9th. Look at that, yeah. And if games go their way, and so they've got to 9th, which is worth 12 million quid to them. It's a lot of money. So, I've not gone for a Palace win. I've gone for Liverpool 2, Palace 2, because, like you said, both teams will be on the beach. There'll be a bit of a celebration. I think there'll be a lot of free-flowing football and some goals. So, 2.
The only thing I will say, and as much as I got the result wrong last week in terms of Brighton, Liverpool, I said 2-2. I did also kind of caveat in it would be over 2.5 goals I believe that Mo Salah is scoring on Sunday, no matter what the score is. I think that's because it's important to him to get that goal, to take the record. I think that I know it's a goal or assist, but I just think that Mo Salah to score is pretty locked in.
Is he the top goal scorer in the league at the minute? I don't know who's winning the Golden Boot. He hasn't scored in about 6 or 7 weeks, has he?
No, yeah, so he's 5 clear, but it's also yeah, but he's also had 18 assists. So I think the point is that if he gets one more, he breaks the all-time kind of goal contribution record. So again, you can bet on to score or assist, but the odds aren't great. But
is he in your fantasy?
He is, and he might well be my triple captain this weekend, because I've got to catch you up.
Oh, you've got that left over. You're trying to get. I've got my bench boost, so that's gone in.
Yeah, that went really well for me the other week. I got 6 pissing points. Like literally all season, I leave more points than that on my bench. I played a bench boost and I get 6 freaking points. So yeah, I'm all right. I'm over it. It's okay. It's all good. So you're going for 2-2. I'm going 2-1 to Liverpool. We come on to. I've got 2 bankers of this week, Fran. One of them is in the next game. Manchester United host Aston Villa at Old Trafford, 4:00 kickoff. You may or may not be surprised to hear that my banker isn't Manchester United, Aston Villa. I think that's
mine as well. So we'll both agree on that.
I think that this is an absolute shoe-in. And that doesn't matter what happened last night, because Man United have won, still a shoe-in because they're celebrating. Man United have lost. I don't see how they've got any way of picking themselves back up again for Sunday. I think this is a comfortable away win.
So I will quickly change my banker from just being Villa 8-11. I have also put them in another bet that I've had. I have them half-time, full-time, 7-4. Like you said, I think this could be 3-4. No, like this is an absolute whooping. I can't see how they pick themselves up. They're not good enough, and Villa have something to play for, and are a very good side. So, I mean, I've got Man U 0, Villa 3.
So have I, exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I've got. And going back to our previous conversation, the other person in the mix for the triple captain is Ollie Watkins. Because I think that he will have a field day, and I think that they will need to score some goals. So, and of course, they have still got that to play for in terms of the Champions League positions, which again is the only piece of interest. And of course, with Chelsea playing Nottingham Forest, we'll see how that goes. But that could have a massive impact on whether Aston Villa can get above where they need to get to. Of course, Villa can still finish above Manchester City, so there's still so many connotations in that race for the top 5. That I just think that Aston Villa are going to come and go at it like a cup final. They're just going to have way too much intensity and ability for Manchester United at the weekend.
Yeah, I can't even see United getting out of their half, to be honest, because Tielemans controlling that midfield comfortably against a United team that will probably tripping over the bottom lip after the final.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Another interesting game, though, St James's Park, Newcastle versus Everton. I think in days gone by, this would have been an absolute shoe-in, but obviously Everton have become a lot more resilient. Having said that, Everton don't have anything to play for. They've gone through the emotion of saying goodbye to the stadium, whereas Newcastle still have everything to play for, and of course are one of those teams that could or could not make the Champions League places. And for that reason only, I'm going for a tight Newcastle win.
I'm going for Newcastle 2, Everton 0, for the exact same reasons you are. However, at 1-3, I think that's a stinking bet for Newcastle. I wouldn't be touching that with a barge pole. I think it's a bit of a banana skin, if I'm being honest. They'll have they're on the beach, Everton, but they'll have nothing to play for, so might be free flowing and could cause an upset. I think it's one of the worst games Newcastle could probably have asked for, with a team like Everton coming to them. So at 1-3, I won't be touching it, but I do think Newcastle will win.
I would also caveat this by saying that Isak needs to be playing, because they look at a completely different team than he did. I mean, that obviously stuck with our conversations last week, knowing that Isak wasn't playing. If he's not playing, they're a different team.
100%. And so it's Callum Wilson. You say Callum Wilson, you think, oh, good striker. He's 34.
He's good
Well,
striker.
now. Yeah, not a patch on Isak, and completely transformed that team, didn't they? Newcastle looked toothless against Arsenal,
Yep.
and so I put him in my bank last week. If I knew Isak wasn't playing, I wouldn't have touched it.
No, absolutely not. So I've gone 2-1 to Newcastle with the caveat that Isak's playing. If he's not, then that might change to a draw. But like I say, as we don't know any different at this stage, I'll go 2-1 to Newcastle. The game of the weekend in terms of Premier League interest has to be at the City Ground. Nottingham Forest host Chelsea. Essentially feels like a little bit of a winner takes all. Now, I know that's not technically true because if all the other teams win their games, there's not a lot that Nottingham Forest can do about it. But what they can do is stop Chelsea from qualifying. Chelsea, for me, obviously missing. You talk about missing centre forward. Nicholas Jackson is a big miss. You know, I did watch them last Friday against Manchester United, and they made hard work of beating Manchester United. And for me, I think that Nottingham Forest defence might be able to keep a clean sheet in this game.
Yeah, I've gone Forest 1, Chelsea 2, just because even though Forest will obviously try and keep, I think Chelsea have to come at them knowing what's at stake, and it's going to open up the game a bit, and I think you'll probably then start to see Forest getting stretched because they have to attack. So I've just gone for Chelsea. I think they've got a bit more quality than Forest. I wouldn't be putting, I don't say that Chelsea are going to win with a lot of confidence. That's just the way that I see the game. Some games I look at, I think that's a banker. I don't think that at all. So this could go any way. I've just gone because Forest have to win. I think they're going to have to, not going to be able to play their usual sit-back tactics. I think they are going to have to open up a little bit, which may open it up for Chelsea.
So interestingly, it's good that we've got a couple of variations this week. Actually, we tend to be. I've gone Nottingham Forest 1, Chelsea 0. I think Chelsea are pretty poor. I think
if Forest are going to win, that's the result that I can see.
I just, Cole Palmer's not doing what he done. Madawaki's not the player that people think he is, in my opinion. If Kukurea doesn't score, who does? And Kunku, who I thought was going to be an absolute, beast, is not.
Is Murillo back?
I don't know, is the honest answer.
For me, he's been a big miss. As I say, Leicester haven't scored many goals, cut them open without Murillo. West Ham obviously managed to get in against Maferet. I think he's been a big miss for them. So that defensive sort of plan without Murillo isn't as strong as it was.
It looks like Awoniyi is the only player not available at the weekend, so it looks like he's back.
Okay. Yeah, if he does start alongside Milenkovic, that's a rock solid partnership, and they can build from that. And the 1-0, I think, does come into play.
St Mary's Stadium, Southampton lose to Arsenal. It's just a case of by how many the score will be.
Southampton 0, Arsenal 3.
Exactly the same as what I have. And obviously there's lots of stuff. Arsenal need a massive window. Arsenal are now the club that it seems like every fan base has turned on Arsenal in terms of their season, their performance, and their fan base being very kind of vocal online. This is a massive 6, 8, 10 weeks for Arsenal to turn around that squad, which sounds crazy to say, but they need to win something next season, don't they, that Arsenal team?
They do. For me, the first signing that I would make if I was Mikel Arteta is Jamie Vardy. I would go and get him on a free. I would stick him on the bench every single game, and when you need a goal, you put him on. He doesn't do what he does for Leicester and starts every game. For me, it's the most obvious signing. Yes, he's 38, but you're not playing. He's not being bought for that. You buy him to bring him on for the last 10, 15 minutes. I think it's the most obvious signing that any club can make. Southampton, on the other hand, it'd be interesting to see if Will Still is presented at the game, because I think from what I've seen on social media, that's the plan. So that'd be interesting if that's confirmed and he's presented at the game.
Yep. It would be good, and obviously be very interesting to see how Will does in the English game. Obviously coming back for personal reasons, but very interested to see how he does. And of course, Mr. Rossigna, who's doing a great job out in France. Obviously, Strasbourg just missed out on the Champions League with that last day sort of defeat at home. He's doing some great pieces out there. I've seen some really good stuff on him as well. So, again, great for managers to go and cut their teeth in different leagues to come back. But for me, this is going to be a very comfortable away win. I see Kai Havertz scoring. If anybody wants to throw that in a double with Mo Salah, I don't know what that looks like, but we move on to my second banker, and we don't normally do bankers of the week times 2, but add these two together, and I think you've got an absolute shoe-in. Brighton are going to beat Tottenham. Tottenham have got their open bus parade Friday afternoon. I think the players probably still haven't slept. I don't see how anybody gives an absolute shit about this game other than celebrating the Europa League trophy with fans in the stadium. Brighton look like they've still got a decent cut in there. So for me, this is going to be another 0-3 victory to Brighton.
Okay, I've gone Spurs 1, Brighton 2, just more because Brighton are so hit and miss, but I agree with you. I think Brighton are actually a decent price. I expect them to be a bit shorter than what they are, but yeah, I think Brighton will win this game as the Spurs will completely still have the party hats on, drinking champagne, probably on the sidelines out of their Lucozade bottle, secretly do champagne. So, easy. I think it's an easy prediction.
Yep, absolutely. And it might not be rocket science to work out what my £5 challenge is going to be as well. But last game of the week, Wolves host Brentford. Again, both teams have done phenomenally well since Christmas for different reasons in different ways. Neither team have really got anything to play for. So for me, I've gone for an entertaining, high-scoring Desmond 2-2, but it could be anything.
What's the terminology we normally use? We go bingo bango. Is it? So, I've gone 2-2. I've done exactly the same. And for me, my £5 challenge is 2 draws, Liverpool and Wolves at 2-2.
Okay.
So I've just gone for the not the correct score. That would be massive. Right. So just the 2 draws pays £115.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Might be worth a cheeky couple of quid on that one, mightn't it? I've gone in my £5 challenge for Manchester City, Villa, and Brighton, which feels pretty safe to me. When that is 3.5 to 1. So I don't mind them odds on that because that feels like a bit of an open goal really for me. But again, of course, last game of the season, I just tried to pick teams that either have got absolutely nothing to play for and on the wrong end of something or something to play for. If I was looking for a risky one, my correct score would be Nottingham Forest 1, Chelsea 0. I think that's the one that if I was going to put money on the correct score, that would be my shout. But look,
I was trying to build a £5 challenge that was around safe teams, and all I kept landing on was Villa and Arsenal, and it got me to I think even money, which I think is one of the most safest bets you could probably do. Villa and Arsenal double. If you want to stick a bit more money on to do that, that's your bet. But for the sake of a £5 challenge, I tried to get a bit of value considering £235 in profit.
I tell you what, mate, this time next year we'll be millionaires. I love it, and I really enjoyed that today, Fran. Thank you very much. Obviously covered loads of different subjects, so hopefully that was some relevance to some people out there, and hopefully those teams that have won a trophy in the last 7 days, I hope you're enjoying yourself. And of course, again, good luck to everybody in terms of their Champions League race, and of course promotion to the relevant division. Fran, as always, where can people reach out and find us?
So if you want to listen to the episode, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. On social media, we're on X, Facebook and TikTok. If you want to just do us a favour, like, subscribe, share, whatever it is on whatever the channels, but we really appreciate it. Just help us grow the channel.
Amazing. Fran, as always, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you next week so we can discuss all of the above and more. Thank you very much, buddy. Have a great week.